Okay. Okay, now the section we're going to section 5.6. So section 5.6, we're going to be looking at average speed and fuel consumption. Fuel consumption. Yeah, these are our main two topics today. We got 4 examples I'd like to walk through today, just kind of one of each type of problem that we're going to have, so you get to see it, but this is our overall section that we're doing here. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss, this is something that was on our last homework, miles per gallon. Something that you have to worry about when you have your car, right? You have to worry about, how many miles per gallon does it have? My Chevy Silverado gets 6 miles per gallon. My Buick outside gets about 30 some per gallon. It does make a huge difference. If you get more miles per gallon, you can drive a lot further depending on the size of the fuel tank. And that's something that some people don't think about. It does matter the size of the tank. Because some vehicles, they get really low gas mileage, they'll make the tanks bigger. So you can still get to the same distances. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. So here's the first example I want to discuss out of 4 examples. The first one, if I told you that your vehicle got 18.2 miles per gallon, MPG, miles per gallon, and your fuel tank can hold 14 gallons of fuel. That's a pretty standard tank. Usually they say they're rated as 12. There's always a couple extra gallons. The fuel in the lines, there's some extra, ventilations that are in the tanks themselves. So you can fill them a little bit extra. I just don't recommend it. It's not good for any tank to be overfilled because the pressure builds up, so gas expands in tanks. So that's why on the nozzle, the gas pump will actually stop your handle from clicking. They are reducing the idea of expansion. It's already detecting the gas is coming back up the line, so they're stopping it. So when you're driving, it doesn't do that and spit out the side of your car or get all over the car itself or rupture a line. So don't overfill it. When it stops, if you know that it filled up to 12 gallons or whatever you're going to, and it seems correct, just stop and click it. Sometimes the sensor inside the gas tank can be messed up. Dust, dirt gets on it, and it will stop all the time, even though it's not even close to being full. That's kind of a pain in the butt. You need to get that fixed. It's one of those things that's something you just have to deal with when you get a car. But your gas on this vehicle, you can fill it up to 14 gallons. So what I want to talk about is how many miles can you drive on this tank? That's something you need to worry about. Because when you buy a car, they always tell you, they're always like the first ones to tell you, unless it gets really bad, gas mileage, they'll be like, hey, this vehicle gets 18 miles per gallon. Like, hey, they're really proud of it. The question should be, well, how many gallons is the tank? Because then I can tell what my theoretical distance I can travel, my average distance. So here's what you do. You take 18.2 and you multiply by 14. And I'll show you why you multiply. But when you do that, what it will tell you is the number of miles that you could potentially drive in total before it goes to empty. So, did anyone actually multiply that out? 254.8. 254.8. So you can drive about 254.8 miles on this vehicle before it's empty and you have to fill it again. That's a big idea, right? Why is that such a big idea? Well, if you're going on vacation, that tells you how far you need to drive, or you could drive, in theory, before you need to fill up again. So if you know you're going 1,000 miles away, I gotta fill 4 times. How much is that gonna cost? Now you can add up the cost, right? So now you're starting to see the purpose of what we're doing. This is something we're gonna look at in the next section. Now, let's talk about why did it end up being miles when you multiply those two together? Anyone happen to know? Anyone happen to know why you multiply miles per gallon times gallons and it gives you miles out of it?
Because with 18 miles per gallon, you're going to do 18.2 miles 14 times.
Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely
But
right.
then your fuel fluctuates, so then...
Yes. So this is theoretical, and you're absolutely right. In theory, you can drive 254. If you have a really bad wind against your front of your car, you're gonna be a lot lower than that. Maybe this traffic is slow and you're not getting optimum gas mileage. Because lower speeds, they always say between 45 to 70 is your optimum range of most cars. That's when you get the best fuel economy. Below 45 miles per hour, the fuel economy in your car goes way down. You get like 13 miles per gallon, even possibly lower. So higher speeds are better. Not too high though. You don't want to speed and go 100 miles an hour. You go through the tank pretty quick. So, yeah, there's an average to it. Now, here's the other reason. You're absolutely right. It's 18.2 14 times, right? Here's the other reason. The label is miles per gallon. It's actually a fraction, right? It's M/G, miles per gallon. Per means the fraction bar. And when you multiply by gallons, the label cancels out in chemistry. This is a chemistry, a change of label. And all you're left with is M. Left with miles. It's a change of label. They teach you that in chemistry. It's a huge idea in chemistry, if that makes sense to you, how labels cancel. So that way you know exactly what to do. By just knowing what the labels were, I could have told you what to do so that it will give you the mileage. So that's an interesting base problem. Okay, questions on the first one? Okay, all right, let's do the next one. So, all right, so now the next one. Now we're going to talk about the mileage of your vehicle. Okay, the mileage. So let's say you're going on vacation, like I brought up earlier. And let's say you're going to travel that 1,000 miles out west. Say you want to travel 1,000 miles to the west. And you know what your rating of your vehicle is. You know what your MPG is for your vehicle. So let's say your miles per gallon on your car is, we go 24. Just gotta make up a number. So let's say your miles per gallon is 24 miles per gallon. Maybe that's your vehicle that you have. Mine would be 30. I'd probably type in 30 for mine. The truck could type in 6. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to figure out on this one, how much fuel are you going to consume? Because that'll tell me the price, what I'm going to have to pay for this trip. Not even putting into consideration oil changes, brakes, tires, things that eventually wear that I might have to replace on the trip. Maybe I have a pop tire. So you should always have a little bit of extra saved up. Hopefully you don't do any major damage to your vehicle. But I want to know the fuel consumed. So we're going to take 1,000 and you're going to divide by 24. And this will give you how many gallons of fuel you're going to use. When you divide it, it will tell you how many gallons of fuel you'll have.
Couldn't we just, yeah.
So
you're pretty much just dividing the miles per gallon by
Yeah.
mile.
yeah. So if we do this and you divide by the miles per gallon, it'll tell you the number of gallons. So what's 1,000 divided by 24?
41.6 repeating.
0.6 repeating. So on this particular adventure that you're going on, you have to fill the tank. You know, it's with 41 gallons of fuel. So maybe your tank can hold, 14 gallons. And maybe that's what you know your tank can hold, because you can Google your vehicle, right? I'll tell you how many gallons your tank can hold. Well, I had to fill it with 41, so I don't have to fill it 4 times on that trip, in theory. Now, it's about 10 gallons per my tank, if you think about it. And I'm going 41 gallons, so it's about 4 fuel stops. So I can already tell, I'm gonna have to stop 4 times, and I better be planning that on my trip. Because that's something you need to think about. If you start going out west and you hit Montana, you hit Utah, there's huge stretches of land where there's no gas stations, none, and you need to make it to the next one. There's like my truck. I couldn't take my truck in Montana on certain roads because I won't have enough fuel to get to the next gas station because that's how bad my gas mileage is. Or I have to have a bunch of gas cans in the back of my truck and fill it on the road.
Kind of like race week.
Yeah.
They do. They
Yeah.
keep a whole bunch of ethanol.
Yeah, exactly right. Just fill it up on the side of the road, have a little spout,
85 octane
Yep.
race fuel.
pour it in, and then keep continuing down the road. And hopefully I have enough gas cans to fill my tank. So that's no joke. That's something I have to worry about if I'm in that truck. I don't take it on vacation for a very good reason because of that. Now, does everyone understand that concept, what we just did there? Now, let's talk about the labeling, because I do like to talk about why do the labels work out the way they do. You are taking miles and you're dividing by miles per gallon. Right, you're dividing by miles per gallon, right? That's the idea.
Then they cancel.
So what you do is that you don't actually divide by fractions, right? MPG, right? And miles per gallon is a fraction. You don't actually divide fractions. You multiply by its reciprocal. That's the real thing that your calculator does in the background. You didn't even notice it. It doesn't actually divide fractions. And so when it flips this fraction over, it's called a reciprocal, and it accidentally multiplies instead, and it does its own number. It's not multiplying by 24, just mind you of that. It's doing the stuff in the background. The labels here cancel out, and you're left with gallons. That's what's happening in the background. But it is actually taking 1,000 divided by 24. It is doing that, but the label situation is doing that situation. You don't actually divide fractions, you multiply by reciprocal. And so that's why the label turns out to be gallons. Okay, questions on the second type of problem?
No.
Now, obviously in the next unit we're gonna do after our major test next week, probably in the middle to end of next week, our next major test will be on traveling. So this is something we're gonna put in real practice. I wanna have you plan a trip across the US. You have to figure out the gas stops you have to hit so that you won't run out of gas with the vehicle I provide you. I'll provide something that doesn't get too good gas mileage.
What, you're gonna do that to us for?
Yeah, and you gotta plan your trip out and see how much it will cost. So, all right. Now, questions on the first two. Okay, next one. Okay, next thing we need to talk about is average speed. The speed of your vehicle. Okay? Certain vehicles can't go very fast at all. My truck is not rated past 90 miles per hour. The dash shows 90 as its top limit. It doesn't go past that. It can't.
And
So.
that's where the thing, speedometer just tops out.
Yeah, tops out. Most vehicles, a lot of people don't know this, older vehicles are governor limited to 90 miles an hour. They can't go faster than 90. Even though your speedometer might say 120 or 140, it will be governed. That means there's a chip in the inside, or there's an actual brace that actually holds the throttle from going wide open, and so you can only go up to 90 miles an hour in your vehicle. The newer cars can go, I think, 130 to 150. That's the newer vehicles coming out.
That's only if you
So.
keep the government in there.
Yes. So, but that's a speed. Now, let's talk about what speed is. Speed on label, because you guys already know this, is miles per hour, right? What that means is you're taking miles and you're dividing by hours. That's a mile per hour, right? So, if I told you, you're going 55 miles per hour, 55, that means in 1 hour, you'll drive 55 miles. That's what it means. That's what that little speedometer says. It doesn't matter anything else. It matters how long you're driving for the time and what the speed that you're traveling at, the speedometer that's rated at, and if you have the right set of tires that are rated for that vehicle, this is how far you'll travel in 1 hour. So that's why you can always get a sense for if you're driving to Ames. Ames is about, what is it? It's like 70 to 90 miles depending on which road you take from here. So if you're going 70 miles an hour, it takes about an hour, roughly. But if you're going slower, it takes longer. So if you're taking, 69 out here, it might take you longer because the max speed you can go is 55 miles. And you have to go 70 to get there. So it will take you more than an hour. That's how I can ballpark time in my head. This is gonna be about an hour or so to get there. I don't even need to look at my, my GPS on my phone. I know it's gonna take me this long to get there because of the speed I'm traveling. If the traffic's going slower, you have to, quickly adjust to what the speed is, right? You have to figure out, okay, I'm gonna take 2 hours to get there now. Especially during the winter. We always have to deal with winter and traffic's going slow and there's, you can't go 55 miles on ice. You gotta slow it down quite a bit. But this is the idea. So now, let's say the average distance you're traveling, let's say you traveled 132 miles. You traveled 132 miles, and you did it in 1 hour and 40 minutes. Okay, so you traveled 132 miles in an hour and 40 minutes. I want to know what your average speed was. What was the speed you were traveling? Maybe you're going down to Des Moines. Des Moines is about 100 miles away, roughly, give or take. And you took an hour and 40 to get down there. So what was your average speed? That's the idea. So what we need to do is figure out what this number is in hours. It can't be hour and minutes, right? So what you do is you take 40 and you divide this by 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. And that will give you a decimal. 40 divided by 6. 60, I should say. What do you get?
0.6 repeating.
0.6 repeating, okay. I'll just go a couple. So the 40 divided by 6 is 0.6 repeating. The 1 is the 1 hour you traveled, so I'm going to make a decimal. That's 1.66 hours. That's what I did. Now, if it was like 2 hours and 40, fine, I'd have 2.666, right? And what I'm going to do is now set this up in my logical idea here. I want miles per hour. So I'm going to take my 132 and divide by how many hours I traveled. This is miles in hours. I want you to divide those numbers. And this is the speed. This is miles per hour. What do you get?
79.51.
51 miles per hour. You're traveling 79 miles an hour. You're speeding. Now you're thinking, okay, that's kind of interesting. Do you think you can find an average? This is an idea that certain countries do. I don't know of any place in the U.S. does this. Certain countries around the world, especially like London, they take an average speed camera on you. What an average speed camera is that they have cameras at a certain location at the beginning of your trip and the end of your trip. So on like the interstate in London, there's only one on-ramp and one off-ramp in a certain stretch of the road, right? Certain stretch. And what they do is they have a camera, kind of like we have cameras like down in the Cedar Rapids that take pictures of your license plate. They look at your license plate when you got on the ramp, they take the picture when you got off the ramp, and they divided the time it took you to drive, because they know the mileage between them. And they divided by how many minutes or hours it took you to drive that road. And then they'll send you a bill in the mail if you speed. And it's big. That's a big bill. You cannot be over the average speed limit. So they say on the side of the road, they say your average speed limit has to be, 100 kilometers per hour. It's 60 miles per hour, right? Fine, you better go 60. Because if you're over 60 on average, they send you a bill in the mail, and you'll get it a couple days later. Okay? Here in the US, we don't have that. We don't have average speed cameras. What we have is we have actual like speedometers where like down in Cedar Rapids, this is the most notorious one down there, right on the Avenue of the Saints. They have a camera right at the beginning of the Avenue of the Saints going into Cedar Rapids, and they have one at the end leaving Cedar Rapids. And they check your license plate, and they have a speedometer on it. And if you're going faster than, I think in that area, I think it's 55 miles per hour. If you're going faster, they send you a bill in the mail. They send you a speeding ticket for $80 by default. $80.
Yeah, my mom got one in the mail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$80. And it didn't matter if you were over by 5 miles an hour or more. They're sending you a bill in the mail for $80. And if you're going like 10 miles over, it's the next bump up. It's like $120.
Hers is like, I think hers is 80 because she
Yeah.
was going like 65
Yeah.
or something.
So it's if you're in a certain range, they send you a bill by default. They don't even check. And then at the very end, they send you another one. So if you went through there the whole time going 70, you got 2 bills coming in the mail.
You rip.
Yeah. I had a friend in college. They went to college at UNI, right? They had to, for their work, because they worked as a phlebotomist, somebody that takes blood for like BioLife and stuff. They drove up to Cedar Rapids to work during that week and drove back home every night. They got a speeding ticket every single time.
Ooh.
And didn't get it in the mail until Saturday that week. So they drove into Cedar Rapids, got the ticket going in, got the ticket going to the next stop, and then got the tickets coming back home. You got 8 tickets in the mail on Saturday for $80 each.
Wow.
So, it's one of those things, and they don't warn you. It just comes in the mail. And they expect you to pay it. Because if it's not paid, what they do is on the next time you try to register your vehicle, you pay your title, you have to pay that at the same time. And then it has interest. So, yeah, it's kind of evil. A lot of our own senators don't like them. They've been trying to get rid of them. Our own governor, or I guess the ex-governor, Branson, was trying to get rid of them. They didn't like them because Des Moines also had them. And the only reason I didn't like them is he got a couple tickets too, and he didn't like it. So, yeah, it's almost invasive, but it keeps people in check. And they clearly warn you. There's like four signs that lead up to it and say, hey, speed enforced by cameras, slow down. And they tell you to speed. And so by the time you ignored it, you're getting a ticket. You can see them. The cameras are right on top of the poles going across the road, and you'll see them. So, but yeah, this is one of the things you'll have to deal with
That's
eventually.
when you black out your plates a little while before.
Yeah. So that's another thing. If they catch people doing that consistently, they'll have a police officer sitting out there waiting for you to come, and then you get a ticket for that. So, all right. The last.
It's the last one. I ticket that's speeding. So.
Yeah. All right. The last problem is I want to know the time that it takes you to travel in a certain location. So the time it takes you to get there. So this is the thing I hinted at earlier. So this is the very last problem. This is the 4th problem today. Let's say you're going to travel 330 miles. This is you're going on vacation. You're going down to, let's say you're going down to Kansas City. I don't know if it's 330 miles. Let's just say that's where you're going. And your average speed going down there is 70 miles per hour. Right? You're on the interstate the whole way down. Miles per hour.
4.7.
Okay. You divide these numbers, and it will tell you the time it takes you. So you take 330, you divide by the speed you're going, and it will tell you your number. What was that number again?
4.7142857.
142, okay. And this is in hours. Now, if you want to know what the 0.71 is, you take the 0.714, you take it times 60. And it's like 45 minutes almost. It's really close. It's like 40 minutes. It's really close to 45.
42.84.
There you go. So this 4 is here. When you divided that by 6, or when you multiplied by 60, 42. Okay. So it took you 4 hours and 42 minutes roughly to get there. Now, why this worked out, the labeling situation again, I always like to talk you through that. You're taking the miles and you're dividing by miles per hour, and it doesn't actually divide fractions. It multiplies by its flip, the reciprocal. And what will happen is the mile labels will cancel and you'll be left with hours. That's what happens. I can always tell what the label will be and if I'm getting the right answer, because I always check the labels and see if I'm doing my math right. Because the labels will tell me if that's the math I should be doing. Because it will give me the label I need. So, but yeah, 330 divided by 70, and it turns out to be 4 hours. I think the average trip around here going down to Kansas City, I think it's about 6 hours, so it's definitely farther than 330 miles. So it takes about 6
That's
hours.
like a trip down to Iowa City.
So Iowa City is about 2.5 to 3
What?
hours to drive there.
3.5?
Yeah, I guess with road construction, and they do have speed spots now that you gotta go super slow now. It used to be 70 the whole way down. Now there's spots where you have to go 60, 55, yeah. It has slowed down a
That's
lot.
just through like Cedar Rapids and
Yeah.
like construction.
Those have slowed down a lot. They used to be 65 in those regions, now they're all 55s.
Yeah.
So they must have a lot of accidents and whatnot, so.
Yeah. And then-
All right, so there you go. That's your last of the problems. The rest of today, you can kind of work on your homework. The page 123, 124, 125, that's due tomorrow. So keep that in mind. It's not this stuff, it's based on the other ones we did. Okay?
Sure, can I go to the bathroom?
Yes, you may. So, tomorrow we'll probably look at maybe an assignment. I think it'll be a worksheet tomorrow. I don't think so.
Oh, we gone.
Yeah, I'll email it to you. So, it'll be due middle of next week sometime, so no worries.
That's gonna be fun. I have to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning Saturday.
Yikes.
I have to go to Lake Mills.
Zowie.
Just because it's reopening duck season. What time we get out here? 16?
Yeah.
18? 16?
18. I think that's green.
Arc show. Shoe.
Not those.
Huh?
Grandma. Usually like to be here during lunch, kind of check on everyone.
we're Mr. Graham and custodians just standing out there having a nice little conversation.
Was it Coach Shu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it was Coach Shu. Sure, he could tell by the sound of his voice.
They're
Booms.
outside.
Oh, they're outside?
Yeah.
Alright, see you later, Marshall Ward.
Later, later. Have a good one.
Yep.
Talk to you on Monday.
Yep.
That's me. Mr. Warrior. Yes, it is. Sure. Bye. Sorry. Asking, we're called to the office.
Okay.
So make sure you wear your mask down there.